Well, for more on the situation on the ground more widely, let's cross live to Kyiv, where our correspondent Gulliver Cragg is standing by. Gulliver, so military intelligence coming from the UK suggesting, as we knew really, that while Russia was failing the beginning of the war, it now seems to be achieving more success in the east of Ukraine. From your experience, is that the case?
Yes, it's a bit funny for the British to present this as military intelligence, because this is really the opinion that's presented in all the media, and which is the very widely shared opinion on the ground in Ukraine. The Ukrainian armed forces had great success in pushing the Russians back from Kyiv region and the north of Ukraine, and also to some degree from Kharkiv region, though the Ukrainian counteroffensive there appears to have stalled. But they are in much greater difficulty in eastern Ukraine because the Russians have decided to concentrate the bulk of their forces on their efforts to take control of the whole of the Donbas region. That's composed of two provinces, if you like, Donetsk and Luhansk. At the moment, there's just a small part of Luhansk region which is still in Ukrainian hands, mainly the city of Severodonetsk, and that is under sustained Russian attack, has been now for weeks. The Ukrainian side say that although the Russians now control most of the city of Severodonetsk, fighting is still going on in the city centre, and they've managed to push Russian forces back in some areas of the city by some blocks. Generally, the Ukrainian armed forces report this morning was a little bit more rosy, if you like, than it has been in recent days. They seem to be saying that they pushed back Russian ground offensives in various parts of the front line in the Donbas. But clearly the Ukrainian armed forces are in great difficulty. The President Volodymyr Zelensky has now taken to repeatedly talking about Ukrainian military losses and saying that they are up to 100 soldiers killed a day and 500 wounded. This is a very extreme change of tack from the Ukrainians' tone in the first weeks of the war, in which they really played down military losses, tried not to talk about them, and only wanted to talk about how many Russian soldiers were being killed. Though I would note that the numbers of Russians being killed, according to the Ukrainians, but not only the Ukrainians, also according to US intelligence, remain significantly higher than the number of Ukrainians being killed. But on both sides, it's atrociously high.
And speaking, Gulliver, of those early days of the war, people in Ukraine were showing a united front back in February, March. 100 days on, is that still the case?
Well, I haven't seen particular cracks in Ukrainian unity emerge. There was an opinion poll published a few days ago suggesting that 80% of Ukrainians who would have said they had a favourable view of Russia before the invasion on the 24th of February now don't. So that would mean a huge number of people have changed their minds. We can, of course, question how effective opinion polling can possibly be in a time of war. Do people really tell the truth to pollsters? Some anecdotal evidence that you hear from people, particularly coming out of eastern and southern regions, is that people who may have been pro-Russian before have changed their minds. I've spoken to people who, grew up speaking Russian. I've spoken actually to several people who grew up speaking Russian and say they don't want to speak Russian anymore. And so, that really tells you something about Vladimir Putin's success in trying to protect Russian speakers in Ukraine. The reaction is they don't want to be Russian speakers anymore. But does that include all of them? That I would doubt. I have also heard people talking, including Anna Zaitseva, the lady I met in western Ukraine in Bukovel, who comes from Mariupol. She said that to her astonishment, there were still people in the bunker under Azovstal steelworks in Mariupol being bombed by Russian forces who refused to believe that the Russians were to blame for this, who said it was theatre, who said it was the Ukrainians attacking their own side. She described those people as zombified by Russian propaganda. And one thing that we need to keep an eye on is how is that Russian propaganda still working now in the areas of Ukraine that Russia currently controls, the areas of the south and the east. What we can be sure of is that they will be doing their best to try to encourage anti-Ukrainian attitudes among local people there.
OK, we'll leave it there, Gulliver. That's our correspondent Gulliver Cragg reporting there from the Ukrainian capital.